The aircraft currently carrying the President of the United States is an icon of American power, but beneath the classic blue and white paint, the VC-25A fleet is flying on technology developed in the waning days of the Cold War. These airframes are over 30 years old and rapidly reaching the end of their lifespan. To replace them, the Pentagon commissioned Boeing to build two brand-new, state-of-the-art jets. But those purpose-built aircraft hit a wall of supply chain bottlenecks and severe labor clearance issues. By early 2026, the delivery date for the new fleet was pushed back to 2028. That delay created a severe logistical vacuum. The administration was facing a scenario where the commander-in-chief might be left relying on failing aircraft, generating massive pressure to find a replacement plane immediately. The solution arrived in the year 2025, courtesy of the government of Qatar. They offered the administration a gift, a 14-year-old Boeing 747-8 that had already been customized for VIP transport. The White House immediately seized on the offer. The administration framed the acquisition as a massive victory for the public, claiming that accepting the donated 747-8 would save hundreds of millions of dollars, while providing the president with a level of luxury never seen in the executive fleet. The administration set an immovable deadline. The new aircraft had to be commissioned and ready for the president by the July 4th celebrations in 2026. This arbitrary target gave the military exactly 10 months to convert a commercial airliner into a presidential transport. Transitioning a commercial airframe into a presidential transport requires total structural reinforcement for doomsday survival. Forcing that massive engineering task into a 10-month window created an immediate crisis. Look at what Air Force One actually does. When a crisis hits, the aircraft becomes a flying situation room. It must survive environments and threats that would instantly ground a commercial airline. Survivability starts inside. The airframe and wiring must be shielded from nuclear electromagnetic pulses. The interior needs an operating room, and the nose requires mid-air refueling plumbing. Outside, it requires classified missile defenses and massive secure antennas to issue military orders globally. Properly tearing down a 747 to install these heavy, complex systems takes years of meticulous aerospace engineering. Trying to compress that labor into 10 months is technically unfeasible. To hit the July 4th deadline, the Air Force contracted defense firm L3 Harris. The company was forced to throw 400 employees at the problem, working around the clock in a desperate attempt to retrofit the aircraft. Because time was so short, the standard upgrade package had to be scaled back. The project focused heavily on outfitting the opulent interior to the president's tastes, leaving critical exterior defenses on the cutting room floor. When the new VC-25B bridge aircraft was finally unveiled in late June, defense analysts noticed glaring omissions. The fuselage lacked the dense array of communications antennas seen on older models, and several advanced missile detection systems were completely absent. It is mechanically impossible to integrate mid-air refueling lines and classified countermeasures in just 10 months. To meet the deadline, the new plane was launched without the full suite of protections a presidential mission demands. Those missing features quickly became a serious problem. A week after its initial flight, the new aircraft carried the president to a NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, placing a partially hardened jet directly into a geopolitical hot zone. While the summit was underway, hostilities with Iran suddenly escalated. The president was scheduled to depart on the new Qatari-donated luxury jet, but the volatile airspace made the flight risky. The Secret Service intervened. Concerned that the volatile airspace put the president's life at risk on an unhardened plane, they forced him to swap aircraft. He flew home on the older, fully hardened VC-25A instead. This sudden swap was a real-world stress test. It proved that despite the fresh paint and the opulent interior, the U.S. security apparatus did not trust the hastily modified jet when actual threats were on the radar. This rushed conversion came with a hidden price tag. To meet the July 4th deadline, the Pentagon diverted an estimated $1 billion in military funds to pay for L3 Harris's round-the-clock labor, new 3D mock-ups, and secondary training aircraft. Lawmakers are now demanding answers. Several senators are requesting full transparency from the Air Force, investigating how much money was siphoned away from other defense priorities, and demanding a list of every security feature skipped to meet the July 4th deadline. In response, the administration has aggressively tried to control the narrative. The Justice Department even issued grand jury subpoenas to 4 reporters who published the details about the aircraft's missing defenses and the Secret Service's intervention in Turkey. The incident in Ankara demonstrates the cost of rushing aerospace engineering for a political photo op. By prioritizing an arbitrary July 4th deadline over the years of labor required for military-grade hardening, the administration delivered a jet that looked like a fortress but functioned as a vulnerability. President Trump recently accepted a unique diplomatic gift from the Qatari royal family, a 14-year-old Boeing 747-8 valued at nearly $400 million. The administration presented the acquisition as a practical move. Instead of waiting for Boeing to finish building new jets from scratch, the military could take this existing flying palace and save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. The president didn't wait long to put the plane to use, taking the new aircraft to a recent NATO summit to meet with world leaders. But the return trip revealed a critical flaw in that plan. As geopolitical tensions with Iran escalated mid-trip, the Secret Service intervened, forcing the president to board an older, traditional aircraft for the flight home. The agency made that call because the Qatari jet has a glaring vulnerability. It matches a presidential plane in size and opulence, but it is entirely devoid of the military-grade defensive capabilities that keep a president safe in the sky. Air Force One is a specific military designation for a flying command center. To see how a luxury airliner compares to that standard, we have to look inside both planes and identify exactly what is missing. This wireframe compares a civilian 747-8 with the military VC-25A. At the tail, presidential aircraft carry infrared countermeasures to divert missiles, missing on the Qatari jet. Internally, it lacks electromagnetic pulse shielding. Engineers must shield miles of wiring to ensure avionics survive a nuclear blast. Beyond surviving an attack, the aircraft has to function as a mobile situation room. The president must be able to direct a war or manage a global crisis from 30,000 feet. Currently, the Qatari jet lacks the encrypted, highly classified satellite communication suites needed to maintain uninterrupted, secure contact with the Pentagon and nuclear forces. Without these integrated defensive and communication layers, the president is completely isolated and highly vulnerable the moment a global crisis erupts. The civilian jet also emits crucial operational sustainment features. It has no mid-air refueling receptacle, a modification that allows a true presidential plane to fly indefinitely without ever touching down. It also lacks a fully equipped surgical-grade medical suite on board, which is standard issue for handling severe health emergencies in flight. President Trump recently told reporters that the Qatari jet would simply be sent away to be maxed out with all these capabilities in, quoting him directly, about a month. This timeline chart illustrates why a 30-day window is a logistical impossibility for military retrofitting. The 1-month projection is dwarfed by the multi-year schedule required for military engineering. Every newly installed system must be rigorously tested for years to ensure flight safety. The Defense Department calculates that completing this retrofit will cost nearly $400 million, essentially matching the entire initial value of the aircraft itself. Integrating classified military hardware into a finished civilian airframe requires a massive engineering feat that takes years to complete, not a quick pit stop. Right now, the Qatari Boeing 747-8 sits on the tarmac exactly as it arrived. It is undeniably a magnificent piece of luxury engineering, full of high-end amenities, but opulence provides zero tactical protection in a combat or crisis scenario. The distinction comes down to the aircraft's origin. A true presidential command platform is a bespoke weapon system built from the airframe up, which separates it from any commercial conversion. Until this gifted jet undergoes years of grueling military overhauls, it remains a vulnerable civilian airliner. You simply cannot shortcut the engineering required to keep the commander-in-chief alive.
When political optics collide with the complex mathematics of national defense procurement, the resulting economic realities are rarely as straightforward as they appear. We see this tension in a highly unusual executive action. the Defense Department accepting a gifted luxury aircraft from a foreign state for use as the next Air Force One. Former President Donald Trump anchored this policy decision during his administration, championing the acquisition following a trip to the Middle East. The executive claim was direct. By securing a commercial jet at a $0 price tag, the administration argued it saved American taxpayers hundreds of millions in development costs. The specific asset in question was a Qatari-owned Boeing 747-8, which arrived fully outfitted for VIP luxury transport. That luxury status presents an engineering problem because the president's aircraft must function as a specialized command node designed to survive a nuclear conflict. Claiming a major defense acquisition was achieved without the standard multi-year congressional budgetary process generated immediate political capital. This political narrative of a zero-cost acquisition is incompatible with the engineering and economic demands of military conversion. An off-the-shelf commercial luxury jet is built for passenger comfort. A presidential transport is a hardened military platform with different structural and electronic requirements. The Department of Defense treats a civilian passenger aircraft as raw material rather than a finalized defense asset. To understand the finances of this process, we must separate capital expenditure, the initial cost to purchase the airframe, from the operational and conversion costs required to militarize it. The Pentagon's official mandate is to ensure proper security measures are implemented before any presidential use of the aircraft. Removing the upfront purchase price shifts the entire financial weight to these mandatory back-end security retrofits. Securing an airframe at zero capital expenditure does not result in a zero-cost defense asset. This maps the financial timeline of traditional defense procurement for purpose-built aircraft. Costs accrue steadily during R&D, tied to oversight checkpoints for public visibility. The competing Qatari 747 timeline, however, starts at exactly zero by bypassing the initial R&D phase. That starting point of $0 provides the administration with immediate political leverage in public messaging. As the asset enters Pentagon control, retrofitting a completed aircraft triggers a massive secondary expense. Post-market modification scales and cost faster than integrated design, as opening a finished fuselage to install bespoke military technology is highly inefficient. Because this airframe arrived as a gift, this cost spike is handled by defense accountants internally, avoiding the debate typical of public-facing legislation. External observers miss the secondary expense because the specific details of presidential modifications are classified. Bypassing R&D does not eliminate costs, it defers them, allowing those expenses to compound during the integration phase. This 747 blueprint maps the military conversion. The luxury cabin is stripped bare, replaced by hardened communication suites, anti-missile countermeasures, and shielded electrical systems. Forcing these complex systems into an existing airframe creates engineering friction. The hardware is adapted to fit the plane, not vice versa. This bespoke conversion is costly. Structural retrofitting leads to cascading delays. Hangar delays disrupt broader operational readiness. The airframe represents only a fraction of the final cost. The economic value of Air Force One is derived from its integrated defense systems. Beyond the engineering challenges, the financial mechanics of this conversion create complications. Ad hoc modifications of a gifted asset bypass rigorous budgetary oversight channels. Traditional congressional procurement relies on transparent budgets, where component costs are openly documented and debated. Without a dedicated initial budget line, the military pulls funds from other areas of the defense budget to cover the opaque retrofit work. This internal shifting of funds obscures the true compounding price tag of the presidential aircraft. The political claim of saving money depends on the financial opacity of the conversion phase. Engineering and financial hurdles are compounded by the friction tied to irregular, foreign-sourced acquisitions. The United States operates under a rigid constitutional framework regarding gifts to the executive branch from foreign states. The emoluments and gift clauses complicate the direct transfer of an asset as massive as a Qatari 747. This flowchart maps the bureaucratic pipeline for the Qatar gift. The process hits a bottleneck at the constitutional and legal review node. Traditional domestic procurement follows a different pathway, avoiding these specific diplomatic and constitutional bottlenecks.
Constitutional compliance adds bureaucratic time costs. Every month spent in legal review is a month the asset depreciates, eroding the operational timeline of the free jet. This split screen weights the initial executive claim against the ultimate economic results. A $0 capital expenditure cannot circumvent the laws of defense economics. The financial burden moves from a transparent initial procurement process to a complex and opaque conversion phase. This strategy provides immediate political capital through favorable headlines, but it does so at the expense of long-term budgetary efficiency. In defense procurement, a free airframe represents a deferred payment for the compounding costs of military integration. Last July, the world's most powerful leaders converged in Ankara, Turkey, for a high-stakes NATO summit. The president arrived at this global stage aboard the newly unveiled VC-25B bridge aircraft, a highly publicized brand-new jet meant to serve as the next Air Force One. The regional atmosphere was incredibly tense. From the sidelines of the summit, the president had just ordered fresh military strikes against Iranian targets, escalating an active conflict in the Middle East. In a volatile environment like this, the president's plane operates as a floating military command center, designed to keep the commander-in-chief connected and protected under any threat. But as the summit wrapped up and the president prepared to depart, the Secret Service stepped in and abruptly altered the flight plan. They hurried the president off the shiny new VC-25B and downgraded him to a 30-year-old VC-25A jet for the journey home. Why would the security detail abandon a state-of-the-art aircraft in favor of an aging airframe, especially in the middle of a geopolitical crisis? This sudden aircraft swap exposes a massive gap between what the public was told about the new jet and what the Secret Service actually knew about its capabilities. The story of the new jet begins with a luxury Boeing 747-8i, which was originally given to the United States as a gift from the state of Qatar. Frustrated by ongoing delays from Boeing on the official Air Force One replacements, the administration bypassed standard procurement channels and fast-tracked this gifted aircraft instead. They pushed it through an impossibly fast 10-month conversion timeline. The goal was to have a flashy domestic unveiling ready for a massive July 4th celebration at Mount Rushmore. Standard aerospace engineering requires years of rigorous testing and integration. To meet this political deadline, the Qatari luxury interior was left largely intact to save time. Speeding up the delivery meant skipping the complex, time-consuming structural modifications that separate a luxury VIP jet from a true Air Force One. The rush timeline left the plane lacking crucial defenses: laser turrets to blind incoming heat-seeking missiles, and electromagnetic pulse hardening to protect avionics from nearby nuclear blasts. Critically, without a secure communications suite, the president cannot guarantee contact to order a nuclear strike. Operating without these specific systems is incredibly dangerous, especially in a hostile region where the threat of anti-aircraft fire is an active, daily reality. Flying a defenseless jet over the U.S. for a holiday photo op might be a risk the administration was willing to take, but taking it into an active theater of escalating conflict became an unacceptable liability for the Secret Service. Shortly after the president returned home, the media leaked the story of the Turkey aircraft swap, triggering immediate political fallout. The administration responded rapidly, announcing that the new jet would be temporarily pulled from service for a month to be maxed out with upgrades. However, the aviation community remains highly skeptical. Integrating complex defense countermeasures and secure communication networks into an existing airframe requires meticulous physical labor and exhaustive testing, something virtually impossible to achieve in just 30 days. This proposed retroactive fix acts as an undeniable admission. It proves the aircraft was rushed into service for political optics well before it was operationally secure. The incident highlights the inherent friction between political optics and military operations. With the stroke of a pen, an administration can easily accelerate press releases, schedule public unveilings, and make grand political announcements. But that political power crashes headfirst into the unbending reality of physics. Rigorous aerospace testing and intricate system engineering simply cannot be legislated or rushed. Eventually, reality audits the difference between what was promised and what was built. And when the safety of the commander-in-chief is on the line, physical reality always wins out over political optics.